Hello, welcome to the 3inMidfield podcast, the podcast where three friends who all discover food have their say on the Premier League. Ladies and gentlemen, you can forgive me for being nervous. We have in the studio a very special guest, the West Ham legend, Tony Cottee. How are you doing, sir?
Evening, boys. Don't be nervous. Don't be nervous. I'm very good, thanks. Yeah, I mean, listen, obviously it's tough times for everyone at the moment, isn't it? But I think I'm blessed. We've been working in the football industry, and it gets me out of the house, and I get to a few of the games and everything. So yeah, it's tough during the week, but when I'm working, I'm happy because I'm going back to football, which is great.
Brilliant. We joined obviously Tony Cottee. Kojo, how you doing, sir?
I'm good, man. Obviously, the ever-present -1.
I wasn't going to do that this week.
I know.
I was going to be nice to you. I was going to be nice.
It feels nice. It doesn't feel right if you don't do it. That means just being, a little bit cold. But yeah, funny enough, Tony looked at us for about 5 seconds and realised what clubs we supported. So this should be a good one.
It was a lucky guess, wasn't it? I mean, I could have picked so many clubs in it, and I just plucked two teams out, and I got it spot on, didn't I?
Yeah, straight away.
Yeah. We're kind of scared that you might be psychic or something like that, rather than lucky guess.
Not that clever.
Coach, if you lead off with the intros.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Got to do a little WWE entrance style over here. Okay, I'm going to do this a bit like Michael Buffer. That's boxing, not WWE. Jesus. Right, here we go. So, West Ham legend, 146 goals in 336 appearances, 293 goals in 712 appearances in all competitions, 7 England caps, has played with the likes of Frank Lampard Senior and Junior, Billy Bonds, Frank McAvenny. If you haven't seen that partnership, go check that out. Sir Trevor Brooking, Paul Ince, Liam Brady, and Rio Ferdinand. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tony Cottee. That's right.
Coach, I'm impressed because normally you get someone goes on Wikipedia, and Wikipedia, all the stats are wrong and everything, but you actually was bang on with the stats here. So well done, well played.
Awesome.
Good start to the show.
I'm not gonna lie. We did check Wikipedia, but we also double checked like West Ham, the West Ham site, a whole bunch of other stuff. So we tried our best to get our stats spot on.
So I'm glad that well.
I guess we'll start at the very beginning. West Ham, you scored your first goal at age 17.
Yeah.
What is that sort of pressure like? I mean, everybody thinks that fans are kind of rowdy now, but back then, I imagine it must have been insane, especially the reaction to a 17-year-old guy from West Ham, from Forest Gate, scoring on his debut.
Yeah, do you know what, Kate? I mean, it was different for me because, I was just saying to you before we started that I was actually born in West Ham. My mum and dad were West Ham fans. My uncles and aunts were West Ham fans. My nans and grandnads, my great nans and grandnads, the whole family was a West Ham tree as such. And for some bizarre reason, I was sort of given a talent to play football. There was, my dad used to tell me he was a great player, but he played for East Ham and I played for West Ham, which pretty much sums it up how good he was, which is true, by the way. But no, I mean, I grew up as a mad West Ham fan, and I used to love going to all the games, and in the 70s. I mean, I'm sure you boys are aware it was certainly a different experience going as a fan with all what was going on, off the field as well as on the field, and it was just great for me to go and watch all my favourite players play. And then I left school at the age of 15, and within 18 months, I was making my debut in the game that you just mentioned against Spurs, and so. It was really bizarre. It was such a bizarre feeling you imagine just leaving school in the May and then sort of January, not the January after that, but the January after that one, 18 months later, I'm playing, I'm starting, I'm scoring against Spurs, and we're beating Spurs 3-0. And, as a West Ham fan, it was just such a special debut for me. Put it this way, if you'd have said to me before that game, write down what you want to happen, then exactly what happened for me. And I was very fortunate on that day because a lot of players, you make your debut and it all goes wrong, or you get an own goal or something stupid, But for me, it was incredible. And listen, we could spend the whole show me talking to you about how it felt and the feelings and the emotions and that, and I could never really fully get over what it meant. And I was so young as well. I was 17 years and 5 months old, and it's. Nowadays the players, they don't make their debuts at 17, really, do they? So it was different times, but really, really special day for me and my family.
Beautiful. I'm going to go forward a couple of years, just maybe 2 or 3 years forward. You won Hammer of the Year at 20 years old.
Yeah.
But you had a partnership with a certain Mr. Frank McMahon at the same time. How important was he to you in your partnership and in your development as a young player also?
Well, when you done the intro, Kojo, you mentioned Frank, didn't you? And you said check it out on YouTube and everything. And yeah, you're right. I mean, I made my debut as a 17-year-old, and then I had 2 full seasons as an 18 and a 19-year-old, which again is, it wouldn't happen nowadays because you get sent out on loan or whatever. So I was very much established, and I'd played over 100 games for West Ham, and I wasn't even 20 years of age. And then we went into what was the 1985-86 season. And, West Ham signed Frank McMahon at the start of that season. And they also signed a guy called Mark Ward, who was a good player for West Ham and Everton. And also we had a guy called Alan Devonshire, who was one of the best players that I played with. He came back from injury. And then Frank, as I say, Frank arrived, and I've got to be honest, I've never heard of him. I didn't know him as a player. He'd come from Scotland, St Mirren, and he came down and he was a breath of fresh air. He was a wonderful player, a really, really good team player as well. And, as he was 6 years older than me, so I'm sort of looking up to him, and he was leading the line and chasing defenders, and a really, really good all-round player. And he started smashing the goals in that season, and I had to sort of catch him up. And it was one of only 2 seasons where I ended up, I wasn't top scorer for my club. So, when Frank was the top scorer, I won the Young Player of the Year, which was great. But, Frank was still the top scorer, and I was like, wow, he set the standards. I've got to catch him. And then the following season, I got the title back as top scorer, which I was pleased about. But no, we was very, very different individuals. And as players, we was different players as well. But as a partnership, we gelled. And, listen, you guys watch modern day football. You don't really get a partnership up front, do you? You think of how many teams in the Premier League play with 2 players up front. It's very, very few teams. But in those days, everyone played as a partnership. And that was quite simply the best partnership I had. We scored over 100 goals between us in 2 seasons, just over 2 seasons, which is an incredible return from just 2 players. And that was probably why West Ham had a very sort of good season in the league that year. We actually finished 3rd in the league, the old Division 1, which is now the Premier League. And, that was West Ham's best ever season. They might actually eclipse that this year. You never know. They're in 4th at the moment. But at this, as we stand, that was the best ever season. And a lot of that was down to Frank.
Let's go to that season. Obviously, you scored 20 league goals. Frankie scored 26, total 46 goals. Like you said, the best season in West Ham club history. I mean, I believe you finished 16th the season prior and 15th the season after that.
Yeah.
So when you were going on this magnificent run, what was going through your head? Was the title ever in your eye line? Because I think you finished 4 points off Liverpool that season.
Yeah, we did. I think we got the most points ever by a team finishing 3rd in the top flight. That's how good a season it was. All of which doesn't mean anything if you don't win the league. But no, it was just, there was no reason for it. Because as you quite rightly said, the season before and the season after, we very nearly we was involved in a relegation battle. So, to have it sandwiched in between West Ham's best ever season, I think it was just a case of, I mentioned the 3 players that, 2 were signings, 1 was coming back from injury. We had a very settled team. I think 9 of the 11 players that season pretty much played 40 games or more. So it was a very settled team, no injuries, no suspensions, didn't play in Europe. So very much like Leicester's season from 5 years ago, where we all remember how great Leicester were, and they had a similar season where there was no injuries, no suspensions, didn't play in Europe. The other sort of so-called top teams all sort of disappeared, didn't they? And Leicester went straight down the middle. So it was very similar to that. Obviously, that season though, we was up against the 2 big Merseyside teams. Liverpool had a great team. They had Kenny Dalglish as their manager, and Everton had won the league in 85 and they won it in 87 as well. And of course, in 86, they finished 2nd. So Manchester United they won the first 10 league games on the trot that season. They had an excellent team as well. Chelsea were good. So there's some big names, but for whatever reason, everything clicked. And I think we got to around about this time of year. And I think we genuinely thought to ourselves, the players in that West Ham team, we actually thought, we've got a real chance of winning the league here. And, we kicked on, and unfortunately, the weather had been really poor in January and February, and we lost a lot of games, and we ended up, I think we played 10 league games in 30 days or something crazy like that. And, we got a bit tired towards the end. We lost at home to Chelsea, and that was it, really. And the chance was gone. But if you talk to any West Ham fans, I know you two are very young, but if you talk to any West Ham fans, I think you mentioned maybe your dads or your granddads were West Ham supporters. Or if you talk to those guys, and they will say that we were the best team that year, and we really, really should have won the league. And it's a great shame we didn't.
Yep.
Yeah. So you also voted PFA Young Players of the Year. So I mean, obviously, it's nice to win the Hammers Player of the Year, of course. But when you're voted in by your peers, how special does that feel?
Well, I think that's exactly what it is. It's when you're voted by your fellow players, the players that you're on the pitch and sharing the pitch with. And, it was a very special moment for me because for me and for the team that year, as you've reeled off all the stats and everything, it did click for me and had a very good season. And it just, when you get to the end of the season, it was around about, I think it would have been mid to late April of that season. Then you go up to London to the Grosvenor Hotel, and then you go on the stage and they, give you this fantastic trophy, which is upstairs in my trophy cabinet. And you think, wow. And I look back now and I think, if you think of all the special names, the likes of Paul Gascoigne and Tony Adams and, some really, really special players. I think Alan Shearer might have won it as well. There was some really top. Paul Merson won it. There's some real top young players won the Young Player of the Year. And, I never got close to winning the actual top event, top trophy, the Players Player one. But, for a young kid to do that, I look back with really special feelings and special memories about achieving it, because when it is your fellow pros that vote for you, you think to yourself, well, you must have done something right that season for the players to all vote for me.
Can I ask? So you had obviously a very good, successful start towards your career at West Ham. What was the next step moving to Everton? What was the reason for leaving? Because obviously I know you're at your favourite club, but there's a professional side to the game as well. What was it that made you make that next step going to Everton Football Club?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think the modern day equivalent at the moment, and you guys will associate with this, is Declan Rice at West Ham, who we all know is a phenomenal player. He's playing really, really well. He's the captain of West Ham. Not that I was ever a captain. I was never that type of player. I wasn't a captain. I was a goal scorer, but I wasn't a captain. But I mentioned Declan because I think that there's only two ways that West Ham will keep Declan Rice as we stand at the moment. One is to win a trophy. They're obviously out of the FA Cup and League Cup at the moment, so that's not going to happen this year. They're not going to win the Premier League, I don't think, because Man City are probably going to win it. Or to play in Europe is the only two reasons. And I think, from my point of view, we're going back, 1988. It's 33 years ago, which is a long, long time ago. But I got frustrated. I've already said I'm a West Ham fan. I'm back to being a Hammers fan now, which is great because I love watching them on the telly and everything. So for that, first and foremost, I'm a Hammer. But there was the personal side of it, which is, in other words, you're a West Ham fan. I don't want to leave the club. I'm a West Ham fan. And then you're quite right. There's the professional side of it. I was ambitious. I wanted to win a trophy. I wanted to play in Europe. And to be quite honest with you, in those days when you came through the youth system, you never got rewarded financially as well as that you should have done. So they was the three main reasons for me. And I felt, certainly going to Everton, I increased my pay packet. I thought it gave me a chance of winning trophies. And I also thought once the Heysel ban finished in 1990, it also hopefully would give me the chance to play in Europe. And of course, I went to Everton and they won absolutely nothing, and I never played in Europe. So was it the right decision? I don't know. But, Everton's a special football club, and, it's very difficult because hindsight, as we all know, is a great thing. And we all make decisions in our life, whether it's personally or professionally. And you, as time goes by, you question whether it was the right decision or not. And I think, I've got to say, hand on heart, at that particular time, it was the right decision for me. I think I was frustrated. I wasn't performing. My last season was probably my worst goals tally, I think, in terms of my returns for West Ham. So yeah, I mean, perhaps it was the right time for me to get out, and I had a wonderful time at Everton. I really did. As I was there sort of just over six and a bit years, which is a long time at a football club, and I loved every minute of it. But it was sad for me to leave West Ham. There's no doubt about that.
I read somewhere that you were linked to Arsenal as well at the time, as well as you had a choice between Arsenal and Everton.
Or Arsenal come into the equation. He just Arsenal.
Yeah, I read it somewhere. So, what was the decision not to join Arsenal, who were under George Graham at the time, I believe?
Yeah, I mean, listen, George Graham was a fantastic manager. You all know your Arsenal history. You know, he won trophies with the club and everything. But you know, it was a simple choice, and at the time as well, it was also a British record transfer fee. You know, so you know, to put it in perspective, it's like the equivalent of Paul Pogba. He obviously going from Juventus to Man United in £89 million or whatever it was. You know, that's the record fee as far as I know. I mean, I might have been someone going somewhere else at the moment, but you know what I'm saying. It was a British record transfer fee, and I'm not putting myself in Paul Pogba's class, whatever. Please don't take that the wrong way. But I'm trying to say it was a very, very high profile move. And Everton and Arsenal, it was a simple choice, you know. And I think the media at the time, you know, obviously there was no social media, there was no even no mobile phones at the time. It was very much like newspaper led, really, and what was on the radio and the TV.
Yeah.
And the choice was quite simple, you know, Everton or Arsenal. And I went to meet George Graham, and I met George twice, and I just felt that he was a little bit, what's the word? I have to choose my words carefully. He was a little bit complacent with me signing. In other words, I felt that he just expected me to sign for Arsenal because, listen, I'm a London boy. You know, moving from West Ham to Arsenal, you move 5 miles down the road or whatever it was, you go and play for a London club. Yeah, I mean, of course, I might have won the league at Arsenal, I might have won cups at Arsenal. I understand all that. And, you know, Arsenal fans have taken great pleasure over the years, I might add, of giving me a bit of stick and saying, you should have signed for Arsenal. At which point I'd turn around and say, well, if I'd have signed for Arsenal, you would never had the pleasure of seeing Ian Wright play because they wouldn't have signed Ian Wright. That was why they signed Wrighty, because they didn't sign me. So that's my answer to that one. But going back to George, I just felt he expected me to sign for Arsenal. And when I met Colin Harvey, who was the Everton manager, he was much more enthusiastic. And he was like, come to Everton, you're going to score 25 goals a season for us. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And it was just much more positive. And also as well, being totally honest with you, you know, Everton offered me more money than Arsenal. And as I said at the time, money was one of the 3 reasons that I was looking to move. So, you know, I had to factor it all in. But it was a big gamble because, you know, listen, I knew a lot about Everton Football Club, but I didn't know about where you would live and what it would be like to live on Merseyside. And, you know, it was 250 miles away. And, you know, I had to go up and live there. And, you know, as it turned out, everything was fine. And I loved living up on Merseyside and that. But I didn't know that at the time. So it was a big gamble from my point of view. And some, like certainly the Arsenal fans, will turn around and say, I should have signed for Arsenal. And I understand that. But I also don't regret signing for Everton.
Like you said,
yeah, you go ahead.
Like you said earlier, it's 2.2 million. So I think that was the record transfer fee for a British player at the time. Obviously going to Everton, I believe they were not Premier League football first Division 1 champions 2 times in like 5 years or something like that. You go there, obviously. I'm assuming you wanted to continue that tradition of winning trophies. What do you think went wrong, if you think it went wrong at all, with Everton?
Well, I think you'll laugh at this one. You could sum up my career at Everton, right? So Everton won the league in 1987. I signed in 1988. I was there for 6 years, won absolutely nothing, left in 1994. Everton won the FA Cup in 1995. So if ever anything sums it up, it's right. So it was the right club at the wrong time. And listen, it can happen for players. It happens now. You sometimes you boys will do this. You look at a player and you think, oh, what a great player. Alexis Sanchez, there you go, perfect example. Brilliant at Arsenal. Goes to Man United. Kojo, you'll tell me, what was he like? It didn't work for him, did it?
Absolute disaster.
Exactly. So I'm not saying I was a disaster because, listen, I was there for 6 years. I was top goal scorer 5 out of 6 seasons. I scored 99 goals for Everton. You know, I didn't win anything. And if you judge me on winning trophies, of course, it didn't work out for me. But I also wasn't an Alexis Sanchez. It wasn't a disastrous move. Yeah. I only said that to give you an example how certain players can be really good at one club and then go to another club and it just doesn't work out. You know, it happens in football, doesn't it? You know,
would you compare it to maybe like Zlatan? I mean, Zlatan has won things at his clubs, but every time there was a sequence where every time he left, that club won the Champions League. Would you compare it to that maybe?
Yeah, but what can you do? I don't know. You make the decisions and the timing. I just laugh at it now. I just think it's funny. But you know, as I said, the 6 years that I was there, 6 and a bit years, my daughter was born up on Merseyside, and you know, her birth certificate says born in Southport, which is up on Merseyside, and you can't change those things. And you know, I had some really, really happy times up there on and off the field, but. You know, I didn't achieve what I wanted to do. I went there. The main reason, I know there was other reasons, but the main reason was to go and win a trophy. That was the main reason for me to go to Everton. So from that point of view, I look back with a bit of disappointment that I didn't do that. I'd love to have known, because the Everton fans are very, very passionate. Actually very similar to the West Ham fans. They're sort of very working class fans, got a community, family feel about the football club, very, very passionate. And love their football club, exactly what the West Ham fans were like. I found the same sort of fans up on Merseyside. So from my point of view, I mean, I played in 3 finals with Everton. I played in the FA Cup final. There was a competition called the Simod Cup and the Zenith Data sort of thing. And I lost three finals with Everton. So I never even had the sort of opportunity to feel what it was like to be winning a cup final with Everton as well. So yes, there was disappointments, but you know, I look back with great fondness with my time at Everton. I had a great time there, you know.
Before we go back to your second spell at West Ham, what is it like playing in the FA Cup final? Because you played quite the thriller against the Merseyside rivals Everton, with a great side, as you obviously mentioned, being Rush and all that. But what is the atmosphere like, and what's like a preparation for such a final?
Well, I mean, the actual for me, it was like a boyhood dream, and you know, I mean, if you talk to youngsters nowadays and you say to them like as a footballer, the main thing you wanted to do was to play in the FA Cup final. And if you say that to the youngsters now, they laugh at you and they say, FA Cup final? It's like, you know, well, why would you want to play in the FA Cup final? Surely you'd want to win the Premier League or play in the Champions League or win the Champions League or win World Cup or whatever. But the FA Cup final was the big deal. It really was. So for me to go to Everton and then at the end of my first season to play in the FA Cup final was a real privilege for me and a real boyhood dream come true as such. So, you know, I loved being a part of that cup final. Unfortunately, it was the Hillsborough Cup final, and I'm sure you've seen all the tragic footage and all what happened that, you know, in that semi-final that Liverpool played against Forest. And, you know, I was playing in the other semi-final, obviously, and it was Everton against Norwich. And, you know, it could so easily have been at Villa Park what happened at Hillsborough, and all my family and friends were there and everything. So, you know, it was so horrible to be on Merseyside, you know, with all what went on. It was awful, but the two clubs came together, and so when we played the final, it was a very passionate all Merseyside Cup final, and it was wonderful to be a part of it. But being honest, Coach, I had such a bad game. I really did. I had a poor game. I didn't play very well. Alan Hansen had me in his pocket. I didn't get a kick, and I just let myself down a little bit, and I don't think it helped. I got to sleep about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was so excited. Genuinely, I was so excited, and I didn't like taking sleeping tablets. So of course you're laying there wide awake, and 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and it doesn't help. And it was like 95 degrees on the day or something crazy in the final, like it often is on cup final day. And you know, listen, that's my excuses that way. But I had a rubbish game. I didn't play very well, so that was disappointing. But you know, listen, I look back, again, I've got my FA Cup runners-up medal, and I can say I played in an FA Cup final. And for me, as a kid growing up, as a West Ham fan growing up in the 70s, like, the thought of playing in an FA Cup final would have been, wow, yes, please, I'd love to do that.
In terms of going from Division 1 to obviously what you know now as the Premier League, was there any, I don't know, like trepidation? Was there any anxiety going from, because I imagine there's a whole, in terms of media coverage, there was a massive change. Obviously, the Sky Sports still came in.
Yeah.
And obviously, I mean, what was your feeling of that deal? And two, did it make you play any different? Did it, knowing that there was so many more eyes going to be on you?
Yeah, I think I can answer the second one quickly. It didn't make us play any different, without a doubt. I mean, it was still a privilege to be a footballer, and just because the name changed from Division 1 to the Premier League, and just because there were Sky Sports cameras there, it didn't alter how I played or how the team played. It was different. Without a doubt, it was different. And I think as players, because I remember at the time that there was a lot going on with the PFA, and there was, a lot of players were basically saying, look, we're not getting as well rewarded as we should be. Don't get me wrong, footballers have always been well paid, even the generation before me, in relation to your average working class man, who does his shifts and works 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, etc. And then they look at what footballers get for training and having a day off on a Wednesday and playing 2 hours on the Saturday. If you compare it like that, footballers have always been well paid, of course, and I was well paid in relation. But we also felt that we should be getting more. There was more money coming into the game. There was more sponsorship money. There was more crowds coming back. They solved the hooligan problem. And everything, they was going towards all-seater stadiums, which, has been one of the best things ever, because it means it's much more of a family environment and safe to take your kids. All that was happening. And as players, I think we was just back in 1992, this obviously was, and we both, as players, we go, happy days, we're going to get some more money here. And which was true and which was great. And then all of a sudden, I remember reading about Roy Keane being the first £10,000 a week player back in 1995 or whatever it was, a long time ago now. And listen, I was on nowhere near that, but you're looking at it thinking, wow, football is really going to a different level here. And then I think one of the pundits said, trust me, someone's going to earn 50 grand a week soon. And we all went, no way in a million years, it's never going to happen. And then you look now and you look at Ronaldo and Messi, you're like, it's not 50 grand a week. You put another zero on it, it's 500 grand a week. And,
yeah.
I know that's European world football, but the Premier League was a great advert for football. It gave the players the platform. It gave them the chance to earn more money. Some people obviously would say that footballers earn too much money, and there's probably a good argument in that, because they do get a lot of money nowadays. But as a player, it didn't really affect me too much, and certainly money-wise it didn't, because I got a little. I signed my first 5-year deal at Everton, and then my contract was coming up, and I signed another 3-year deal. So I got a little bit of a pay rise then. But then when I went back to West Ham, you mentioned it, which is when I left Everton, I went back for my second spell. I actually took a pay cut. So I must have been the only player in the Premier League era who was taking a pay cut, and because I wanted to play for my hometown team again. So I took a pay cut to go back to West Ham because they were struggling financially at the time. And then you look at Roy Keane and Alan Shearer and all the great players at Arsenal and etc. And they was all getting their money was going like that, and my money was going like that. So I think I just missed the boat in terms of the finances. But I had a great time as a player. It's not always about the money. The memories are there, and I had some great memories certainly as a footballer.
Going back to West Ham now. So I want to ask you what brought you back there. There was a hint of it. I saw an interview of yours where you spoke about, I think you played in a friendly or maybe a testimonial, and the West Ham fans gave you a very warm welcome back. There were boos, but they were friendly boos. What was it that took you back home more than anything?
Well, what it was, Kojo, I played, the great Bobby Moore died. I don't need to say anything more. You just say the words Bobby Moore. And Bobby, massive West Ham and England man, and one of my heroes as a kid. And Bobby died, and they decided to put on a game, a charity game. And the game basically was at Upton Park, and it was West Ham against a Premier League 11. And what they decided to do, there was 22 Premier League teams at the time. Obviously, forget West Ham, made it 21. And they said, we're going to pick a player from all 21, one player from 21 Premier League clubs. That would be the squad. And they're going to go to Upton Park and play this game, charity match against West Ham, for the Bobby Moore charity. And I was thinking to myself, well, I was at Everton at the time, and I'm thinking, well, surely I must be the one that they must think of to play in this game. But this was 5 years down the line from when I'd left West Ham. And in that 5 years, I think it's fair to say that I had very, very mixed reaction from the fans. I think a lot of the fans were disappointed I left. It didn't help. They got as soon as I left, the season after, they got relegated, which obviously compounded things. So when I went back, in general, when they read my name out, you had about half the crowd were clapping and the rest of them boo and all that stuff. Like, listen, it's football, you know what it's like. So very mixed reaction over a 5 year period. And when I went back to play in the Bobby Moore game, and the guy came in who does the sort of the MCing, and he said before we start the game, we're going to read all the names out. All the players are going to be introduced to the crowd. And I'm going, oh, no, my God. Like, if they read my name out and they're booing, this is a charity match, Bobby Moore's just died and all that sort of thing. I'm thinking, oh, my God, this is going to be awful. But I had to do it, and I had to front it out and everything. So anyway, they go down the line. I can't remember, most of the players I can't remember, but they read all their names out. They all step forward, step back, step forward, step back. And then they went, and number 9 for the Premier League 11 is Tony Cottee. And I stepped forward expecting a crescendo of boos, and the whole ground clapped me. Cheered. Okay. And I thought, you know what? And I thought it made me feel really, really, it really touched me, because it was the right thing to do on the occasion. And it made me feel, do you know what? If ever I get a chance to go back to West Ham, I think the fans would accept me. And that was 1993, I think I'm right in saying. And then in 1994, I went back in the April, and I scored for Everton, and we beat West Ham 1-0 at Upton Park. So I'm thinking after that one, maybe they won't want me back, you know. But anyway, it came out to the September, and Harry Redknapp was the manager of West Ham, and he needed a centre forward, and I spoke to Harry, and we got it sorted, and I went back to West Ham, and I had 2 and a bit great years back at the club, and it was lovely for me to go back, and it was like unfinished business. And I went back, and I was top scorer for a couple of seasons, and I had a really good time. And we had some characters. We had the likes of Julian Dix and Martin Allen and John Moncur, Don Hutchison. You know, really, really good characters and good players as well. So it was a good football team.
I mean, obviously, your first game back here, you scored a hat-trick against Manchester City. I imagine that obviously
that makes me happy.
Cahil, listen, I love the fact you bigged me up and that, but it wasn't my first home game. It was my first home hat trick. It was about 4 months after I'd gone back to the club. So, I mean,
sorry.
Yeah, it was but it was worse than that, because the first game back as a West Ham player was at Anfield, and I got sent off in my second debut.
Oh yeah,
I get sent off, and I was a stupid tackle. I deserved to get sent off. And then the first home game back as a West Ham player, we beat Aston Villa 1-0, and I scored the only goal, so I made up for it a little bit. But sorry, the game you was referring to was in the December when I went back, and it was my only league hat trick at Upton Park. So that was a sort of special game for me. And I know that makes you happy, Kojo, didn't it? Score an hat trick against Man City.
Yeah. I mean, you scored goals against my team, but it wasn't a hat trick, so I can live with that.
No, it was an hat trick,
exactly. What were the differences when you came back? Because obviously you were under John Lyall the first time at West Ham. So when you went back, it was Harry Redknapp, and obviously you got to see a young Frank Lampard, for example, or young Rio Ferdinand. What were the differences when you rejoined West Ham, if there were any?
Yeah, I mean, it was weird, really. The training ground was the same. The lady who done all the food, Shirley, she was still there. I think the groundsman was still there. The youth team coach was still there. So Alvin Martin, Steve Potts was still there from my first spell. So there was still a lot of stuff that was there from before. Bearing in mind, I've been gone for over 6 years, which is a long time. But there was also new stuff happening. You know, you're right, Harry was in charge, and there was a lot of new players there that I had to get used to. Slaven Bilic was there. I played with Slaven. And also as well, which was great news for West Ham, they got the academy back going again, because in the 80s you had the likes of myself, Steve Potts, Alan Dickens, George Paris, Kevin Keane, Paul Ince. All these great young players came through the academy. And they'd had about 5-6 year spell, pretty much while I was away from the club, where hardly any players come through. And then, of course, when I came back to the club, I think it was around about 1996, and sort of out of the blue, Harry introduced these 2 young kids to a training session, and I looked at them and I didn't know the 2 kids. I really didn't, and it was sort of like, who are they then? It was like, and they went, oh well, that's Frank Lampard Jr. Because Frank Lampard Senior was a coach under Harry Redknapp, so they was both at the club at the same time. And I went, who's that tall lad, skinny lad? And they went, oh, that's Rio Ferdinand. And I'm like, being honest, I hadn't heard of the 2 boys, but when I asked about it, and then I spoke to the youth team manager, and he went, do you know what, these 2, they're going to be really good young players and everything. And then they started playing with the first team, and then I played against Rio a couple of times in training, and bearing in mind, it would have been 16, 17 years of age, and it was very hard to get past him as a 17-year-old, let alone what he was going to go on to become as a player. So, it was great. And then I think I'm right in saying against Coventry, I think Frank Lampard came on for his debut as a West Ham player, and I went off the field of play. So without me, Frank Lampard is never going to make his West Ham career.
No, hell no.
Or Chelsea. So, I think hopefully he might thank me for that one day. But no, it was happy times. And, as an academy graduate myself, it's always nice, I think, when you see the kids. We've had like Mark Noble, obviously Declan Rice, young Ben Johnson's been playing, and, all young kids who have come through the academy at West Ham, which is great news.
Let's go to, to set this up. It's weird when you see, it's rare. It's not weird, I'd say. It's rare when you see a British player go off to a foreign league. Gareth Bale, Jadon Sancho, there are a few names that have obviously gone to very big clubs. But you went to Malaysia, I believe. And you went to a team called Selangor. Yeah,
very good, Kat. Very good.
There we go. I did my research. And this is where you won your. One question. This is where you won your first professional trophy as a player. It was the Malaysian FA Cup.
Yep.
So what was the decision to go to Malaysia? What was going through your thought process? Why did they appeal to you?
Well, it was all a bit bizarre, really, because when I went back to West Ham, I'm thinking, well, I've had my 6 years away. I'm coming back to the club that I love, and I'm going to stay at West Ham forevermore now. I think when I went back, I'm trying to think how old I was. I went back in '94, so I was 29 years of age. So I'm thinking I could play another 4, 5, 6 years for West Ham, retire at 35, which I did in the end anyway. So I had no intention of leaving the club whatsoever. But what had happened is during the pre-season, my 3rd season back at West Ham, as I say, I was top scorer for 2 seasons. This pre-season, I got injured. I injured my calf muscle. I was out for about 6 weeks. And also during the summer and during the time I was out injured, Harry Redknapp had signed a lot of European players. And I don't know whether you remember them. There was like Dumitrescu, Radachoyu, Darnay, Paulo Futre. Ian Dowie was at the club as well. So there was a lot of forward players at the club. And when I got back to fitness, I think it was pretty clear, for whatever reason, I think Harry had made his mind up that, I don't know whether he did, it's sort of a bit harsh saying he didn't want me, but I was very much a 5th or 6th choice striker. And I'm thinking to myself, well, this is a bit weird, because I've been top scorer for 2 seasons running, and now just because I've been injured, listen, maybe I could have stayed and waited and fought for my place a little bit, but I was probably 30 years, maybe 31 years of age coming up, and I'm thinking I don't want to be sitting on the bench. I didn't want to be. I wanted to play. That's the bottom line. I wanted to play, and I thought, if I can't play at West Ham, I don't really want to leave, but I'm going to have to accept I might have to move on. And I honestly thought that not necessarily a Premier League club will come in for me, but I thought, well, a Championship club should come in for me, and if I don't play Premier League, I'll play Championship. I wanted to play football. Yeah. And then, of course, about 2 or 3 weeks went by and not one single club. Bearing in mind there's 92 clubs in England, not one club came in for me. And I'm thinking, wow. And out of the blue, Harry said to me, he said, look, Selangor will come in for you in Malaysia. And I'd been to Malaysia on a pre-season tour for Everton about 8 years previous. So I'd been to Malaysia. I knew like Kuala Lumpur, I knew how hot it was, and I knew about the weather, etc. I knew it was going to be a real tough experience. But I sort of flew out there, and then they flew me back, and then the manager was putting me under pressure. Are you going to sign? Are you going to? And Harry was going, well, West Ham need money. They'd spent a lot of money. They was going to be in financial trouble basically if I didn't move on. And I thought, well, I've got a decision to make here, and I thought, you know what, sorry, I'm just going to 2 years. I'm going to go sign for 2 years. I thought, a bit of tax-free money. I thought, a nice little payday at the end of my career. And I come back. and I'll play for one of my local clubs. I'll play for Orient or Southend, Colchester, whatever, and just wind my career down. I'd had 12 years in a high profile top flight career, and so I signed for Selangor, and as soon as I signed, the manager resigned. So the manager who signed me, I never played one game for him, so which was a bit bizarre. And then the manager who took over was a guy called Steve Wicks, who I'd played against. He used to play for Chelsea QPR. He took over as manager, and we had a lot of fun. And Steve was very much, he wanted to get the best out of me. But if I describe it, boys, as I had a nice holiday. I think that's the best way of describing my football experience in Malaysia. It was interesting, to say the least. And seriously, I'd done a load of travelling. I went to Australia, New Zealand, Bali, Singapore. I'd done all this travelling and everything. It was great, just to go around all the different places down in the Far East and Australasia and all that. So I loved that side of it. But the football, it was just too hot for me. It really was too hot. And I really, really struggled to run around. I couldn't breathe. And have you guys been to Florida?
No.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Right, okay. If you've been to Florida, you know how hot it gets, how humid, and you get that rain comes down, about a foot of rain down in about 20 minutes, doesn't it? And Malaysia is very, very similar temperatures. And it's like one of our stuffy summer's days. One of those days where you can't breathe and it's like 95 degrees. And that was what it was like in Malaysia. Every day was 95 degrees. And to train in it, to play in it was just really, really difficult for me. And in the end, like my wife at the time, she fell pregnant, and we were going to have twin boys, and she sort of went back to live in England. I ended up, I had 6 or 7 weeks on my own in Malaysia, and it was very tough for me, really tough. And in the end, I wanted to come home, and as I said, I was happy to play lower league football. That wasn't the issue. So of course, I'm thinking to myself, when I leave Malaysia, that if no one wanted me when you leave, no one's going to want you when you come back. So, I didn't know what to expect. And then out of the blue, Leicester came in for me. And I ended up, I had 3 years at Leicester, and they was 3 of the most successful years of my career, which was at the age of 32, 33 and 34 for the 3 seasons. It was a real sort of Indian summer for me in terms of my football career, to have an experience at Leicester that I just never, ever expected. So to sum up Malaysia, lovely holiday, really nice people out there and everything, but football-wise, it was a bit of a. You mentioned the word disaster. I think I had an Alexis Sanchez in Malaysia. It was definitely a bit of a disaster.
All right, let's come to Leicester, because I wanted to ask you. For me, it was an interesting question, because when I was watching some videos of you, you had a wonderful partnership with Emile Heskey.
Yeah.
How good was that partnership, and how would you compare it to your partnership with Frank McAvenny?
Yeah, a different partnership, obviously. Funny enough, I was doing some TV work yesterday, and I was actually with Emile, and it was sort of, I hadn't seen him for a while, so it was great. We was in the studio together, and what was funny, they said we dug out a clip of one of the goals that you was both involved in, right? So I said to the guy, I can guarantee you that the clip will be me scoring the goal and Emile doing the hard work and creating the goal. And then, of course, you see him beat a few players, chips the ball in, and I've headed it in from about 2 yards out. And I think it pretty much summed up the partnership we had. I mean, a lot of the people watching this will remember the partnership that Emile had with Michael Owen for England, which was an outstanding partnership, by the way. And it was very similar. Listen, Michael played for England, had done much better for England than I ever did. But when I played club football, I had a very, very similar understanding with Emile. He was a big, strong boy, but he was very talented, very, very quick, and he could take players on, and he would brush them aside, and he'd beat 2-3 players. He'd cross the ball, and then there I was doing what some people think's the easy bit. It's really the hard bit, which is to put the ball in the back of the net. But he used to do all the hard work. He used to do all the running around. And when the ball was played down the middle, I said, "Emile, your ball, it's not my ball. You go and hit that one. I'll get all the glory." And so we had a really great understanding, and we played together. We were saying I think it was just under 3 years together. And I loved every minute of playing up front with him. We had a really good team, Leicester. I mean, it's proven that that we We played in 2 cup finals. We lost the first one against Spurs, and we beat Tranmere in the second one. And that was my only domestic cup final that I won. I had 5 finals, lost 4, and I won the last one. But we had a really good team. We had Tim Flowers in goal. He was an international goalkeeper. We had Matt Elliott, Jerry Taggart, international defenders. Frank Sinclair, who was an international defender. Steve Guppy, Lennon, Savage. We had some really, really good players in that team. And, we had our unique team spirit, if you like, and the style of play, how we played and what we did and everything. And we used to laugh and joke about it. But if you look back at that team, it was a very, very good team. And on our day, we was capable of beating, the top 2 teams in the late 90s were obviously Arsenal and Manchester United. And we was capable of beating Arsenal and Manchester United. We was capable of beating Liverpool's and Chelsea's and that. We didn't do it regular, but on our day, we was a really, really good team. And I loved it. I loved great time at Leicester.
That's the thing. So who's that? Is that you?
Oh yeah, I've turned it off. Don't worry.
Kojo, come on, Kojo. I'm professional.
It's my dad. He's watching. That's what he's calling me the wrong time.
So, yeah, like you said, the hard part is actually putting the ball in the back of the net, scoring the goal, and you were very prolific at that. Obviously, Fox in the box, goal poacher, which kind of, I'd say maybe Jamie Vardy today, but is the closest. But back in the day, I mean, you scored loads of headers, which surprised me considering, it must have surprised defenders at the time because how good you were in the air, considering that you're 5'7". Am I right?
And a half. Don't you look? Okay, you missed the half. Don't forget the half. 5'7".
I apologize. I sincerely apologize. I mean, so what was the when you were in that box? What was the most important thing for you? Obviously, apart from putting the ball in the back of the net, where were you aiming to be when that ball was delivered?
It's another one of those questions. It's really hard to answer it. I mean, I think I knew probably from about the age of 6 or 7, I would say that I knew that I had something different to the other players. I started I grew up in Romford. I'm playing Sunday football, and I just seemed to always be in the right position to score a goal. And you can't teach that. You mentioned Jamie Vardy. He's a wonderful player. I mean, another player who's playing up in Scotland at the moment, who's had a great career, Jermaine Defoe, is another sort of goal scorer. And then before that, you had Michael Owen, Robbie Fowler. And then before that, you had your my generation, the Clive Allens, Gary Linekers, Ian Rush, Ian Wright, Les Ferdinand, fantastic goal scorers. And then before that, you had your Jimmy Greaves and all the top boys before that. So, but if you ask any one of those players that I mentioned, if you said to them, was you different? Did you have a talent that made you different as a footballer? I'm pretty certain that they would all say the same thing, that, you're born with a specific talent. And what you have to do, though, is you have to harness that talent and you have to develop it and try and get it from what starts off as Sunday football, and then you start off as youth football, and then you obviously go into being an apprentice, and then you've then got to transfer all that skills and everything you learn into becoming a professional footballer, which is the hard bit. And, I think when you get to a certain age, and you boys will know this, when you get to the age of 14 or 15 and you get girls come into your life, you get drink come into your life, you might get drugs or whatever it might. So many things happen at that age, don't they? So many temptations. And the reason I say that is because as a youngster, it's very difficult to keep on the straight and narrow because you get all these temptations. And, there was players that as a 12 and 13-year-old players, that was much better than me. But I kept my focus and went down the path, and these boys went over there, and they just drifted out of football. And, you have to be dedicated and you have to work hard, you have to practice, and there's an awful lot that comes into it. But in answer to your question, as a goal scorer, it is something that I think you're blessed with. I think you're born with a God-given talent that enables you, for some reason, when everyone runs towards the ball, you run the other way or you walk the other way. And sometimes you stand still, because football movement, it's not all about running. It can be walking. It can be. Listen, I watch Lionel Messi, like you boys watch Lionel Messi. I've never seen anyone walk so much in a game as much as Lionel Messi. But when he gets the ball, is there ever anyone within 10 yards of him? He's in so much space. And you think to yourself, well, hold on a sec, surely they must put someone on it. And they must say, it must have been man marked so many times. And yet the man marker can't get anywhere near him. And that is, again, please don't think I'm comparing myself to Lionel Messi. I would never do that. But what I'm trying to say is that he's got all the skills in the world. He's got everything. So has Cristiano Ronaldo. So's Neymar. They're on a different level, those boys. But I had one specific talent which made me have the career that I had, which was the ability to be in the right place at the right time to score the goals that I scored. And, yes, I had to work there was no luck involved because I had to work really, really hard. The only luck that probably was involved in my career, I would say, was when my first game that we spoke about right at the start, because Paul Goddard got injured. So when a player gets injured, you have a little bit of luck. That player can't play. You get the luck and you get the chance to start, but that's where your luck finishes, because there's no luck in scoring a goal on your debut or scoring another 290 goals after that. There's no luck involved. People say, "Oh, you was lucky," and I said, "Well, I wasn't lucky. I had to work really hard, practice, and the skills that I was given, I had to make sure that I developed them and made the most of my career." And yeah, listen, I look back on, I had a fabulous career, 20 years as a professional footballer. Even to play 20 years is a great achievement, because a lot of players only play 10 years or 12 years or whatever, so to play for 20 years in itself was an achievement for me. But I look back and I've got very, very few regrets, I had a wonderful time, and I wish I'd have earned a bit more money. But as I explained, I just didn't play in the Premier League era, really. And that, but I can't change that. But I had a great time, and, I tried to make the most of my goal scoring talent. And I'd like to think that I've done that.
Absolutely. Got you for a couple more minutes, so I'm just going to ask you quickly. What is your current thoughts on what West Ham are doing right now, and especially David Moyes?
That's taken a while, but it took 50 minutes of me talking about West Ham. We spoke about Arsenal.
Throw it back in there.
Listen, they're doing great, aren't they? I mean, Moisey, I'm so pleased for Moisey. He's a really, really nice guy. I've not been to the training ground for about a year now, for obvious reasons. You're not allowed down there. But whenever I go to the training ground, he's very, very warm, very welcoming. I think he understands what it means to play for West Ham United Football Club, which is always a great start. And, bearing in mind, he nearly got relegated last season, to be where they are. He's done a fantastic job. They've got some really, really good players. And, to be in fourth position, is an achievement in itself. I just hope that they can get into Europe. And by that, I'm not saying that they're going to get into the Champions League. Even if they get into the Europa League, I think that would be an outstanding achievement, bearing in mind what happened last season. And, they lost 2-0 home to Newcastle in the first game as well, at which point everyone's going, West Ham are rubbish, they're going to be useless. Then Arsenal beat us in the second game, and, it could so easily have gone the other way this season. But they really rejuvenated themselves, picked themselves up, and, they play some really good football. And I think they're enjoyable to watch. Even like, if you two sat down to watch West Ham as a neutral, you'd say, do you know what? They're not a bad team, West Ham, this year. And, I think there's definitely similarities with our team that finished third and the team that's obviously doing so well at the moment. And I think everyone liked watching us that season, and the same applies this season. So, listen, I haven't got my crystal ball. I know I predicted which two teams you two support, but in terms of West Ham, I reckon my heart says they're going to finish in the top four. That's obviously my heart, but I think my head is saying probably 5th, 6th, maybe 7th, I think. But I will take that, and that will be a really good season. Hopefully gets in the Europa League as well.
We're going to end with a few quick fire questions.
Cool, boys, good.
Let's get them going. So, best goal you ever scored?
Best goal, apart from my debut, which I've already waffled on about, Phil, that was more personal reason. Best goal, I scored an overhead kick for West Ham against Forest in 1988. And you mentioned YouTube, Kojo. Go on to YouTube, have a look at my overhead kick, and they go on about.
Oh, we've watched that many times already today. So
it weren't bad, was it?
It was really good,
beautiful. Stunning,
wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Best coach you play for?
Some great managers. I mean, I mentioned Harry Redknapp, Howard Kendall at Everton, Martin O'Neill at Leicester was wonderful. Sir Bobby Robson was my England manager. All four were wonderful managers, but the one I would always single praise out for was John Lyall, my first ever manager. And, to give a 17-year-old a debut and then to keep him in the team like he did, it doesn't happen nowadays. So without John Lyall, I wouldn't be sitting talking to you boys now, so without John, nothing happens. So John Lyall's the answer.
Best player you played with?
I think I briefly mentioned him, and it might surprise a few people, but I'm going to go for Alan Devonshire. And again, the youngsters will say Alan Devonshire, but if you could get a clip of Alan Devonshire playing, he played on the left side of midfield, and he could glide past players. He was very, very quick and very creative as well. He's a wonderful player. I played with Trevor Brooking. I played with Peter Beardsley as well. And I played in the England squad with Gazza, with Glenn Hoddle, with Ray Wilkins, Brian Robson, incredible players. But at club level, Alan Devonshire was the best player for me.
Worst player to play against?
I don't know. I mean, I think Hansen and Lawrenson were really good. The Liverpool team of the mid-'80s was an incredible team. But I probably would go for Paul McGrath, a Man United boy. Look, he's perks up with a big smile on his face. You mentioned Man United. But no, he was like a Rolls Royce. He was, bearing in mind, he didn't train. He liked to drink or two. And everything you shouldn't do as a footballer, he was doing. And yet you'd play against him. And you'd go to run down like the side of the pitch and that, and he'd always get there before you. And you think, how does he do that? And he read the game beautifully, and he was always in the right position. So it made him really tough to play against.
And final question: who wins in a match? 85-86 West Ham or current West Ham?
85-86. The problem is, though, we're all 50 and 60 years of age, so I don't know. It might be we played. But no, it's so hard to compare, is it? I mean. Listen, we've finished our season, and I don't think we can really judge this current team until we finish the current season. Once this season finishes, we've got 12 games left. If they finish third, then all us boys, we're very close knit. The lads, Frank McAvenny and all the boys I played with, we're still very close, and all of us will go well played. If they finish third, we'll all be so pleased because it's been a long time. It's been 35 years now since West Ham finished in third position. So. If they can finish anywhere in that top four, I think we'll all go Champions League. What an incredible achievement that was. So hopefully we'll be talking about it at the end of the season. But in answer to your question, I think the 85-86 just had a little bit more flair in the team. I think that's my honest opinion, but I'm going to be biased. And what do you expect me to say? I'm not going to say.
Tony Cottee, thank you very much for joining us today. Coach, sign off for us. Where can they find us?
You can find us obviously here on YouTube at 3inMidfield Podcast. You can find us on Spotify at 3inMidfield, Twitter 3inMidfield, Apple Podcast 3inMidfield, and SoundCloud 3inMidfield. Thank you to everyone in the comments, everyone that's been watching. Tony, much love in there for you as well. Much love for joining us, and have a nice evening. Cool.
This has been the 3inMidfield Podcast. Good night.